Hey Rip City, this is Scoot Henderson, and it's time to open the briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 147 of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm your host, Casey Holdahl. I am in Atlanta with the Trailblazers, preparing for the third game of a 5-game road trip after spending a couple days in New York and starting the trip in Sacramento versus the Kings. Blazers lost the first 2 games of the trip, have now a 4-game losing streak going into Tuesday's game versus the Hawks here in Atlanta. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the play-in, which is it's not impossible for the Trailblazers at this point, but it's getting almost to that point, particularly if things don't change, if the Blazers don't start getting some wins here and if some teams around them don't start losing. The race for the play-in will be over sooner rather than later, and unfortunately, the Trailblazers, as of right now, not in a spot to be in the play-in. But we'll also discuss Toumani Camara's Defensive Player of the Year campaign, which kicked off today, and we'll hear from Anfernee Simons on this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, the Trailblazers started off the trip by losing to the Kings in Sacramento on Thursday, flew to New York on Friday, had Friday and Saturday, not off, but at least in New York, before playing the Knicks at Madison Square Garden on Sunday afternoon. Fortunately, the Trailblazers not able to get the win there, losing 110-93 in front of a sold-out crowd at Madison Square Garden. Trailblazers kind of ran out of gas in that game is what it kind of felt like. Either that or the Knicks really brought a different level of intensity in the second half. Portland led by as many as 14 points in the first half, but were outscored by 22 points in the second half to end up with the 110-93 loss. As I mentioned, 19,812 people at Madison Square Garden to take in that game. Shout out to the Trailblazer fans who said hello to me on the concourse. I forgot to write down your name, but I really appreciate you stopping and saying hello. It's always nice to hear from people who listen to the podcast or interact with the work. It's especially nice to hear it on the road, and particularly in a place like New York City. It's such obviously a big town, a big city. To have even one person there say, "Hey, we appreciate that you do the podcast," really means a lot. So thank you so much to the fellow whose name I now forget, but you know who you are, sir. Thank you so much. He was with your family as well. Hope you guys had a great time, even with the loss. Blazers are now 32-43 overall, 12-25 on the road this season, and have lost 4 straight. In the first half, it actually looked like the Trailblazers might get that game. As you might recall, the Trailblazers went to overtime versus the Knicks in Portland, so a team that obviously they played really well earlier in the season, actually not even all earlier than the last homestand. So the Trailblazers actually, they got down early on in the game, but then made a run in the second quarter. They go a 15-0 run in the second quarter and finish the half on a 20-3 run and outscore the Knicks 31-9 between the 4:45 mark of the second quarter and the 8:52 mark of the third quarter. But basically, after that, it was all Knicks. Blazers scored just 20 points in the third quarter and 15 points in the fourth quarter to come away with a 17-point loss. Just looked like they kind of ran out of gas a little bit. They only got 4 points off the bench. All 4 of those points came from Wap Reith, I believe all in the third quarter. Deni, Toumani, and Shaedon all played. Well, Deni did play 40 minutes. Toumani and Shaedon played very close to 40 minutes. I think that was a situation where the Blazers really don't have any margin for error at this point. If they want to make the play-in, it's already going to be really hard to make the play-in, even if they do everything exactly right. And I think that game was kind of an indication that Chauncey was like, well, these are guys that have it tonight. If it's going to happen, we got to start winning some of these games. So I'm just going to ride with some of these guys longer than I would have otherwise. And also the fact that we had, 2 or 3 days off leading into the game versus the Knicks. I imagine they felt like they could probably extend out some minutes if they had to. That's what Chauncey decided to do. It worked in the first half. Unfortunately, did not end up working in the second half. As I mentioned, the Blazers outscored considerably in the second half to come away with a 17-point loss. So pretty good game for the Blazers, actually. I thought they comported themselves fairly well. Just went up against a Knicks team that's playing better basketball right now, is trying to round into form for the postseason, and playing in front of their hometown crowd, which is revitalized by the way that they have played as of late. So shout out to Knicks fans. Good night at the Garden. It was a good night for me too. I didn't get lost once, and I didn't get turned around, and I didn't almost end up outside of the building, which has happened to me on multiple occasions. They sit you pretty up high at Madison Square Garden if you're media, so you got to know how to traverse your way through that building. And it can be a little bit confusing because it's kind of it's an arena unto itself. Like the fact that it's also a subway station and Penn Station, like it kind of throws everything off. But either way, a fun night at the Garden. Unfortunately, the Trailblazers were not able to get the win. Another great night for Deni Avdija, who goes 14-25 from the field for 33 points to go with 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals in 40 minutes. That wraps up a phenomenal March for Deni Avdija. In the month of March, Deni averaged 23.4 points per game on 51% shooting from the field, 46% shooting from three, and 81% shooting from the free throw line on 61% effective field goal percentage. He's also averaging 9.8 rebounds, 8.1 of those defensive, 1.8 of those offensive. If he had gotten 3 more rebounds in the game versus the Knicks, he would have averaged a double-double for the month of March. So I was a little disappointed in that, but 9.8 rebounds is still pretty dang good as well. Also averaging 5.2 assists on 56.3 passes per game, almost a steal per game. 15.3 drives per game for Deni, and he's covered 33.7 miles in the month of March. And according to StatMuse, Deni is the only player in the month of March that averaged at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists on at least 45% shooting from three. So a very good month for Deni Avdija, a guy who I assume is in the running for March Player of the Month in the Western Conference. Granted, Portland's record not helping him out a whole lot there, but at least in terms of kind of his individual statistics and what he's been able to do in the month of March, he deserves it, I think, as much as any other player in the West does. He's been phenomenal. And I'm really looking forward to kind of what next season looks like for Deni with getting all the jitters out and kind of the get to know you stuff out of the way. Deni Avdija in his second season as Portland, I'm expecting big things if he's able to play the way that he has played so far in his first season in Portland. Moving on, Shaedon Sharpe goes 10 of 18 from the field for 23 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block in 39 minutes. Toumani Camara also played 39 minutes, as I mentioned. I think it was like 39 minutes and 48 seconds, so really closer to 40 minutes. And he ended up with 16 points on 6 of 8 shooting from the field, 4 of 6 shooting from 3, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. Anfernee Simons, 15 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. Donovan Clingan grabbed 10 rebounds in that game and blocked 2 shots. I believe he also scored 2 points. But as I mentioned, the Blazers only got 4 points from their bench on Sunday's game. That's basically you can't really win a game when your bench scores 4 points. And again, Chauncey kind of he put some guys in for the first shift. I don't think he really liked what he saw, and I think kind of from there he was like, let's just see if the starters can get it done tonight, and which would explain maybe why they kind of trailed off towards the end of the game there. The Knicks are a physical team. Everyone gets real excited to play at Madison Square Garden, so you got a bunch of adrenaline to start the game, and then as the game goes on, I think that probably wanes a bit. So, multiple things going on there, but a very good first half for the Trailblazers. Unfortunately, not able to carry that over to the second half. And we are now in the second half of this 5-game road trip. The first part of the trip obviously started out pretty slow with multiple days off in between games. I think probably the NBA sets that schedule and maybe assumes that the team is going to fly back to Portland right after the game versus the Kings on Thursday. But no one does that, particularly when you're going to a place like New York or Los Angeles. Teams just go straight to the next stop. I mean, we could have gone back to Portland and been there for like 24 hours. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But when you look at the schedule, you kind of assume that that's maybe what the schedule makers think is going to happen. Because it goes from a 4-game trip to a 5-game trip. 5-game trip, pretty difficult, particularly when it's more than a week, 7 days, or this trip is 10 days. So long story short, we're in the second half of the road trip. The games really pick up here after playing 2 games. I think over the course of 4 nights, we'll now play 3 games over the course of 4 nights and finish off with a back-to-back. So the games start coming thick and fast on this road trip from here going forward. And those next games, obviously, playing the Atlanta Hawks here in Atlanta on Tuesday, 4:30 start time for that game. Toronto on Thursday, 4:30 start time for that one as well. And then you have Chicago to end the trip, second out of a back-to-back. That's a 5 o'clock start time on Friday. And as of right now, the Blazers 3.5 games behind the Kings with 7 games to play for the 10th and final spot in the play-in tournament. And since the Blazers, as we talked about on the last edition of the briefcase, own no tiebreakers, they will need to win an additional game as well. So even though they're 3.5 games back right now, they're really more like 4.5 games back. So as I mentioned, and as I have mentioned quite a few times at this point, not only do the Blazers have to win basically all their games going forward, they have 7 games left. They also need to get some help from the other teams around them. They have to start losing. Most of those teams don't seem like they're going to do that. The Kings are now in that 10th seed. The Mavs have moved up into ninth. Now they're getting a little bit healthier. The Suns losing Kevin Durant for at least a week with an ankle injury. They are currently, as of right now, on the outside looking in on the play-in race as well. So they might end up outside of the play-in as well. And then you have the Trailblazers right behind them and the Spurs right behind them. Basically, the Trailblazers and the Spurs right now are tied. The Blazers, I think, have one more win and the same amount of losses. Um, so that's where the Blazers are at. It's going to be very difficult for them to get into that play-in spot. But they still do technically have a chance. But again, with every loss, particularly when you've lost four straight, it's kind of hard to assume that, after four straight losses that you're going to kind of flip the switch and win a bunch of games from there. They don't have that many games to go. As I mentioned, just 7 games. The schedule does ease up a little bit. Even though the Raptors are playing much better basketball right now, they have won four straight. The Bulls also playing really good basketball right now. The Hawks are trying to. They still conceivably can move up out of the play-in. I believe they're in fifth right now in the Eastern Conference, but I think they're like 3.5 games back, so that seems fairly unlikely. Though I think they're back on the Bucks, and Bucks without our good friend Damian Lillard. So not entirely sure how that's going to shake out. But I don't. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not entirely sure the Hawks have a whole lot to play for. The Raptors and the Bulls do. So the last 3 games on this trip are going to be difficult ones, and they're at least going to be against teams that are more on the talent level of the Trailblazers. I think the Knicks, more talent than the Blazers. Kings, about the same amount. I mean, more talent, more veteran talent, but not a team that I think you look at and say like they're considerably better than Portland. And then you had some games at the end of the last homestand versus some very difficult teams. So schedule does get a little bit easier, but not all that much easier. And so while moving up at this point does feel a bit unlikely, they could also continue to move down. They haven't moved down any spots in some time, but as this end of the season goes on, if they're not able to get some wins, obviously those will be losses. It's the way it works in the NBA. You either win or you lose a game. And if that is the case, they conceivably could fall back behind a few teams as of right now. As I mentioned, they're basically neck and neck with the Spurs right now. And the Spurs not playing especially well either. The Spurs and the Blazers do play a game, still have a game left to play this season. So that one could very well decide which team is going to end up above the other team. And at that point in time, you're talking about lottery odds. So you can probably make some assumptions there about, what each team would prefer in that situation, at least if the play-in is off the table at that point in time. And so the next team after the Spurs are the Raptors, as I mentioned, who are 4.5 games behind the Blazers. And the Blazers, as I mentioned, could fall behind them as well, but they have won 4 straight. The Blazers have lost 4 straight. But that's as far as they could drop, basically. The other teams that are below them in the standings are too far back. The next team after that are the Nets, who have already been eliminated from playoff contention, and they are 8 games behind the Trailblazers, and the Blazers only have 7 games left to play. Ergo, they cannot fall any further down than the Raptors. They could get past, but they can't get any lower than, let's see here, ninth. They have the 11th worst record right now. They could end up with the 9th worst record, or excuse me, as low as the 7th worst record, though it's also possible that they move up to past the Heat and the Bulls, who are tied for the 10th worst record at 33-41. So, long story short, Blazers still in the race for the play-in, but it's getting tighter and tighter, and the likelihood of that happening gets less and less and less and less and less with every single loss. And as of right now, I'm guessing their odds are very low to make the play-in. They could also continue to move down, and they could conceivably get better lottery odds, but even then, not much. So I guess the broad view here is that the Blazers might as well continue to try to win because they really can't fall down all that much further, even if they lose. So if you're someone who's more interested in lottery odds than the play-in, which is entirely fair, I'm making no judgment statement on that. You almost might as well just win now because there's really no point in losing. Again, they could drop a few spots down, and that's not nothing. The better the odds you have in the draft lottery, the better the odds you have. But they can basically only move up 1 or 2 spots at this point. So we'll see how that shakes out here in the last 7 games and 2 weeks of the 2024-25 season for the Trailblazers. Well, as someone who travels not to every game with the team, but to the vast majority of the games with the team, and have done so for some time now, I have quite a bit of knowledge about hotels, and I can tell you that with a variety of rooms, from lavish premium suites to charming classic standards, the hotel at Spirit Mountain Casino has a type of room for everybody. Their rooms have all the essentials from high-speed Wi-Fi. We've had some really bad Wi-Fi on this trip, folks. Nothing, I won't say nothing, but having high-speed Wi-Fi in your hotel room, particularly as someone who works on the road, is incredibly valuable. So the fact to have that at Spirit Mountain Casino is nothing to shake a stick at. You have the high-speed Wi-Fi. You have the 24-hour desk service. You can choose a room that best suits you and book your stay now at Spirit Mountain Casino. Spirit Mountain Casino on Highway 18 in Grand Ronde. Elevate your game. Well, as we get down to the end of the NBA's regular season, teams start turning some of their attention towards postseason awards, and the Trailblazers have done just that as well. And the main focus of the Trailblazers postseason award campaign, Toumani Camara for Defensive Player of the Year. Toumani Camara in his second season, one of the best defenders in the NBA already as a young player, and only getting better. And as part of the campaign to promote Toumani Camara for Defensive Player of the Year, the team has put together a website, the Camara Case, that kind of runs down many of the particulars of the case for Toumani Camara for Defensive Player of the Year. It's a strong case, and they've also created this super fun lunchbox for some of the folks in the media and otherwise. Toumani, as some of you know, does this little box routine, putting you in the box. And as part of that, the Trailblazers have put together this fun little branded box that is a locked box, I should say, as well. It's I'm guessing it's for lunch and things of that nature, but runs down the case for Toumani Camara. As you can see, it is locked here. It's at zeros right now. But if you look at the logo there, little 33. So let's go ahead and turn this little guy to 0, 3, 3 for Toumani Camara. I just heard the lock disengage. And there we go. The Toumani Camara box. As you can see, some fun branding here for Defensive Player of the Year for Toumani Camara. The Camara case. As you can see, check out the QR code there as well. Scan the QR code to go to the camaracase.com. As I'll just read out something here. The Portland Trailblazer hails from Belgium and is on pace to lead the NBA's charges taken, offensive foul drawn, and mean mugs. He wears number 033, which is how you get the box open. A little more information here as well as part of the box that you get put in. The crew at the practice facility, the staff that puts together the food at the practice facility, shout out to all the folks down in Tualatin who keep everyone fed, have put together a fun little waffle mix, seeing as how Toumani Camara is Belgian, and the Belgians known for their delicious waffles. So the folks at the practice facility have put together a little waffle mix here to celebrate Toumani's candidacy for Defensive Player of the Year, along with some delicious maple syrup with this fun little Toumani Camara branded logo that the team made. Shout out to you, Koji. And yeah, just a fun little tchotchke here to promote Toumani Camara's case for Defensive Player of the Year, of which he has a very strong one. But it's not just about the merch things for Toumani Camara's case. We also have put together, or I should really say Tucker Hamilton, one of our videographers, editors, all-around swell guy who is on the trip with us, actually on this trip, put together a fantastic edit focusing on Toumani's box celebration, putting you in the box defensively. Let's go ahead and check out the Toumani Camara Defensive Player of the Year box edit.
Hey! You in the box, you cannot hide anything. You in that space. Can't go nowhere. You don't have no option. Turn up. You cannot get out that space. And yeah, and lock you down defensively.
Leading the league in charges.
I watch a lot of like defense corners, like DBs, the way they move their feet or their footwork. And it's pretty impressive to me. And I saw a couple of celebrations and the box was one of them. For me, I see the court in two halves. One first box in the front court, and then one second box in the back court. As a defender, you don't really get to touch the basketball or the football a lot, so be able to have an impact just on wanting to stop somebody, I think is huge. if I'm able to get a stop in the front or backcourt, I feel like that's just a good symbol to symbolize, like, you know exactly what I mean. You do that sign after getting the defensive stop, I feel like it's pretty straight to the point. I just loved it.
It all starts with Toumani Camara.
He is the shadow.
He's the best in the league. He's the best.
37 All-Stars he's guarded this season.
We talk about banshees. He's a banshee. I think everybody around the league is a big fan of Camara.
He's the type of player that everybody wants.
Toumani, he is a maniac.
He's very tough on the ball, very physical. He's hard to screen. I have a ton of respect for how Camara plays.
They dominant too. I'm having a ton of fun playing basketball, period. Whether it's defense, offense, however, if I can be on the court between those four lines, I feel like it's just one of the best ways I can express myself, so I just love it.
So there you go. Really great stuff there for our videographers. Really great stuff from Toumani. The way he plays is just phenomenal. It's really exciting. It's really fun to watch. Toumani has been, obviously one of the most important players on the team. I think he's going to be an incredibly important player for this team going forward. And seeing his growth as a player and just seeing like his profile raise as well, I think has really been fun. I'm also going to pat myself on the back there a little bit in that I asked a lot of the opposing coaches those questions about Toumani Camara that we're using for the campaign as well. So, I played just a little small role in it. Not a large role, but a small one. But speaking of small too, let's run down some of these stats that are also on the box here. Maybe you can actually see. You guys might be able to see that in the camera better than I can see it with my eyes these days. 20, and these are stats as of March 29th. 29 charges drawn, which is first in the NBA. 79 offensive fouls drawn, which is first in the NBA. 227 defensive stops, which is third in the NBA. Shout out to Tom Haberstroh for those stop stats. Those are really cool and a really good way to indicate kind of a player's defensive value. That's one of the things about defense too, is that it's harder to tell through stats how good a player is. I mean, offense is like it's not like the totality of who you are as an offensive player, but it's much easier to gauge value on offense because of the stat categories. We don't have as many in defense. So a lot of times it's like whoever leads the league in blocks, or whoever leads the league in steals, like that's who wins defensive player of the year, which, I mean, good defensive players, don't get me wrong, but I don't know that necessarily encapsulates what really makes a player a good defensive player. And so being able to extrapolate out some of these stats and really kind of come up with some different ways to gauge how you qualify or quantify defense, I think is really cool, and it's something that the team has done and continues to do, and the NBA continues to do as well, which I think is a smart thing. 102 steals, which is seventh in the NBA for Toumani. Excuse me, 102. That's second. Oh, among second-year players, that's what it is. Some of the writing on that gets a little bit small, but either way, the Toumani Camara box. It's fantastic. Shout out to Maggie and the rest of our PR staff and our design team as well. Great idea, great execution. Way to go, guys. Toumani Camara, Defensive Player of the Year. Go to thecamaracase.com to learn more about Toumani Camara's defensive prowess and why he should be the 2024-25 NBA Defensive Player of the Year. And finally, the team had a practice in Atlanta on, what day is it? Monday? On Monday, when we arrived from New York City, and got a chance to talk to Anfernee Simons for a little bit, talk to Ant about just his thoughts on the season, particularly as the most veteran and most tenured Trailblazer, kind of where he's seen some growth from the team this season, particularly from a skill perspective with some of the young players, his thoughts on guys like Toumani and Shaedon and how they've performed this year, Deni as well, kind of what he's brought to the team. Having something to play for at this point in time in the season, as we'll talk about with Ant. He was obviously here when the Blazers were going to the playoffs on a consistent basis. That has not been the case the last few seasons. So I think for Ant, it's probably maybe a little more frustrating than some of the other guys because he knows what it's like to be in the playoffs and be in those races late in the season, to be playing for something late in the season. And so I asked him about that and kind of just how that's felt to have something to play for late in the season in terms of getting into the play-in. Again, at this point in time, it seems fairly highly unlikely, but at least having, that to be a motivating factor and keep guys engaged, I think, from my perspective, watching the games really seemed to have an effect on the late season effort for the Trailblazers. And I think Ant talks about that as well. And then just talking, real quick about some of the things that he'd still like to improve about himself and his game. Obviously, Ant has been in the league for some time now, but still a young man and someone who feels like he's still got some room to grow in terms of his skills. So this is Anfernee Simons after practice on Monday afternoon on the Georgia Tech practice facility where we practiced at today. After arriving from New York City, Anfernee Simons on Monday afternoon at Georgia Tech. Take it away, Ant. All right, with Anfernee Simons. So, Ant, first off, getting close to the end of the season here, how do you feel like things have gone, particularly, I would say, in the last couple months? Because it seems like they're almost kind of a bit of a change of something, at least.
Yeah, I think it's been great last couple of months. Just building each and every game, we've seen like real growth on the team and individual players. So it's been pretty fun to see all the guys like kind of grow into their own, and also as a team we grow into what type of team we want to be.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because Deni had mentioned that, I kind of pitched him a question about the starters, and he turned it into an answer about kind of the young guys and how good they had been playing. Kind of what are your thoughts on some of the young players on the team and the growth that they've made this season?
They've been, a lot of growth, especially like with, I think we've been a lot of growth with shooting.
Yeah.
Toumani been able to shoot the ball, pretty well. Like I think, obviously last year, like people would leave him open on purpose and stuff. So I think, coming into summer, we knew obviously he knew exactly what he needed to work on. He came in this year, and guys can't just leave him open no more. You know what I mean? He able to knock down shots pretty consistently. So him in school obviously as well. Shooting as well. We they would do the same thing in school and kind of go under pick and rolls. He figured out how to maneuver the pick and rolls. When guys are going under, and he's been stepping back confidently shooting the ball. You can tell he's been working on that all summer too as well. So I'm pretty happy with those two guys. And obviously Shaden being healthy is we all know what he can do on the court, and so just him being healthy this year is big for us. We need it.
Some of it's probably kind of obvious, but how does it help you to have other guys on the team that can shoot? Because obviously you being known as a shooter, I think obviously you draw a lot of attention, and that opens up things for other guys. But then if it kind of flows that direction, then it probably comes back and helps you a little bit too.
Yeah, that was the thing about from last year that you would say that it'll be like kind of a struggle, because I got so much attention last year because guys might have been as good as shooters, so they would just allow them to shoot the ball the whole game and just take the ball away from me. So this year coming in, obviously we playing different from last year, but this year a lot of guys you can see even when they are left open and stuff like that, they're not able to knock them down. So it gives you confidence that those guys been working on their games, and when that does happen and they're double teaming me and they trapping me, I know that we're gonna be able to make them pay. And so that was one of the things that we didn't do consistently enough last year, is make them pay for how they was guarding me.
And you feel like you've done a better job of that this year?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I'd agree. Yeah.
Guys coming in knocking down shots. Obviously, getting Deni helped a lot. Another ball handler. A guy that can make plays for others as well. And like I said, Shaden getting healthy. Another scorer out there that can spread the defense out, and that's just been helping us out as well.
You mentioned Deni being a ball handler. That was actually my next question. Like, having a few more guys on the team in Deni and Scoot and Shaden, I feel like his handles improved this year. How does that kind of help you as well? Because I think kind of the same way with shooting last year, it almost seemed like you're the primary ball handler and secondary ball handler almost, because you were kind of one of the few guys that had experience of being someone that the defense focuses on in terms of ball handling.
I mean, like you said, last year it was just really me and Scoot. That was always handling the ball. So it's different now. Like Deni can push the pace a lot more, get downhill. Do what he's great at, which is, like I said, push the pace and get downhill, and that helps us out, give us a new way of, me being off ball and kind of exploring all the off ball things that I can do as well. So it's been good because, most, like I said, last year I was holding the ball all the time, so I really didn't have time to be off the ball. You know what I mean? Just because of how our team was set up. But this year, I'm able to be off the ball a lot more and be able to, keep the defense honest, that way, and work on my off-ball shooting and movement.
Absolutely. What's it been like to have someone to play for here at the end of the season? Because obviously you've been around for a while. You've been on this team when they've been in the playoff race. And even just having something like the 10th seed, it at least seems to me that, you can feel like a different kind of level.
Yeah, for sure. I think just knowing you got something to play for, especially like you just got a chance at something. You know what I mean? That's probably the best feeling that we had over the last couple of years, that we knew, last 10 games, like, all right, we string some games once together, it gives ourselves a chance to be in that play-in. So it's just a step in the right direction.
I know that a lot of these guys are young, so they haven't really experienced what it's like to be in a playoff race or to be in the playoffs, and you have. And so to not having been there for a while, I'm guessing is probably a bit frustrating for you. So, like, how do you go about dealing with that, or at least being reminded of that feeling when you're kind of playing these games late?
Yeah, obviously not taking it for granted. Everything's gonna happen when it's supposed to happen, but at the same time, just use that as motivation to get better for the next year and be more prepared, and help the team as much as you can to get to that point, which I think everybody here wants to get to that point. And because that's when we find out the real players, and that's when people make a name for themselves. So I think everybody here individually want to make a name for themselves, and that should be enough motivation individually, and it should come together collectively on how we want to play and be in the play-in in the playoffs.
Obviously it kind of comes and goes, I think. But defensively, this is also, I would say, the first season in a while where I really felt like progress was made on the defensive end. Yeah. How do you kind of feel like that side of the ball has gone for you guys this year?
It's been great. Just, I think Chauncey did a good job emphasizing how we want to play each and every night when it comes to defense first. And so, I think everybody bought into it, and we've been showing up each and every night, trying to do that for the most part. So I think we've been pretty consistent with that. And it showed. I mean, obviously we won. We come into games, we beat some good teams, and I think it started from our intensity defensively. And I think that's what we pretty much rely on each and every night, and not just scoring, obviously, but defensively.
Absolutely. What are some of the things that maybe you still feel like you want to get better at? Because you're a pretty fleshed out player. Like, you obviously, you're a very well known product in the NBA. Yeah. Like, what do you feel like maybe is the next step for you?
No, I think that, me personally, I think I could get better at everything.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I still got steps I need to take to be the best version of myself, and whether it's ball handling, still shooting, defense, playmaking, pretty much everything. I think I need to gradually just keep getting better and understanding the game a little bit more. And so I think it's going to continue to come with experience. Obviously, you being in the playoffs reveals a lot about what you need to work on, and because obviously those type of settings, like teams are pretty much scouting you to the T, and that's why I want to get to that point so bad, because that's how I really know when I'm gonna get better at. Obviously regular season, you get a light scout. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna trap you, but playoffs you really find out what your weaknesses are, because they're gonna take everything away.
That's what I'm talking about, Nate.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Back it up.
Much appreciated to Anfernee Simons for taking the time there, and I thought some interesting stuff there. I think that. Sometimes I think it's been tough for Ant, because, again, a guy who wants to compete and is a point in his career where, he wants to be, a consistent playoff performer. And I think we're getting there, though. And I think you can kind of, when I was talking to Ant today, I definitely got the sense that he feels like, the team really made some progress this year and is maybe not as far away from being a competitive team as maybe some people thought they were going to be at the beginning of this season. I feel like, as I mentioned in the interview, I think, the last couple of years maybe a little bit tough to tell kind of what you're getting out of some of the seasons. Obviously there's growth, and guys are getting minutes, are getting opportunities to play. So, there is, there's something that's being achieved, but in a broader sense, in terms of is not just are the individual players getting better? Are they developing? But is this team getting better? Are they developing a style of play? Are they developing identity? Do they have a culture? Those are the kind of things where I think maybe a few seasons prior, I think you can kind of ask yourself, I don't know that you would have necessarily a really solid answer to that. Maybe you did. But I think that at least more of a likelihood that maybe you would come away from a season feeling like, I don't know exactly what to take from that. I feel like this season, though, I feel like there's definitely some very strong takeaways. I feel like you really figured out a few things in terms of kind of some of the guys you have on your team in terms of Scoot and Shaden and even a guy like Donovan who hasn't even been on the team for a year. I think and Toumani obviously as well. I think you really figured out that like, hey, the move we made for Deni, bringing Deni onto this team was a smart one and a guy who, might be better than we thought and might be able to be a very good player on a good team. There's always that like, can he be the best player on a playoff team? Can he be the best player on a Western Conference Finals team? Can he be the best player on a championship team? I don't know that we have the answer to that for some of these guys just yet. But I think with Deni, you start to feel like, hey, I mean, this guy could be a bigger part of a much better playoff team than maybe we thought when they made that trade. I mean, I know they obviously really liked what they saw out of Deni already. But again, I think you've probably seen a bit more out of him this year than you probably assumed you might. Obviously, Toumani, as I mentioned, took a huge step this year. So, I think there's a lot of things, and I would say defensively, they really improved on the defensive end, and like considerably and consistently, you can see kind of the direction they're going, the moves they've made from, re-signing Matisse, who has looked phenomenal since being able to play this season, to drafting Donovan Clingan, to getting Toumani Camara in that trade. I think, obviously he's been out for a little bit, but I think you mention DA as a guy who, looked, I think, a lot better this year than he looked last year and really had a run where you're like, hey, this guy is a very good player and who could really help this team. And so, I definitely feel like there were some takeaways from this season, at least a number of takeaways from this season in excess of the number of takeaways that I've had at least for the last couple seasons. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. I think we'll probably get in one more version of The Briefcase on this road trip. Kind of depends on probably what the Wi-Fi is like in Toronto. As I mentioned, we've had some bad Wi-Fi on this trip so far. I actually recorded a little bit of a podcast in New York and then realized that in order to get it onto YouTube, it would probably take more time than we had left in New York for it to upload, because just not the bandwidth to do those kind of things. So if all the tech stuff works out, we'll have one more edition here on The Briefcase on this road trip before we head back to Portland, where we will arrive on Friday, late Friday night, early Saturday morning. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check out thecamaracase.com and go Blazers.